Hey everyone, it's Nikki and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a tier list of all of the anthropomorphic rabbit and hare characters that I could think of. So I've split this list into two sub-lists. The first one that you can see is going to be a list of all the characters I'm actually familiar with. I've seen the shows or cartoons or read the books that they're from. And then the second list I have made is a bunch of other characters from works that I have not seen or read, and I'm going to be just going off vibes for those characters. But for these ones in this first list that you can see here, they are actually characters I know, so I will be making my rankings based on that. But for the other one, it's just going to be a little bit more silly. Alright, so first up we have Anais Watterson from The Amazing World of Gumball. Now, first of all, she's just got a great name, so she's got to rank high, at least on that alone. And I always liked her as a foil to Gumball. She's still silly, but in a different way than Gumball is, and she really gives off like younger sibling energy. So I think I'm gonna put Anais at B tier just because I like her, but she's not like spectacular. Next up is Benjamin Bunny from Beatrix Potter's works. He's kind of a sidekick a lot of the time to Peter Rabbit, who you might be able to see down here, also a part of this list. Benjamin is just a bit more, I don't want to say stupid, but he's less clever than Peter, let's say that. I do think he's cute. I like him as a character, but again, kind of like Anais, he's not particularly memorable, so I think I'm gonna put him in the B tier. Next is Bonnie and all of Bonnie's variations from the gargantuan Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. So that includes Rockstar Bonnie, Glam Rock Bonnie, Toy Bonnie, etc., etc. I really like Bonnie. Bonnie has always been my favorite animatronic of the core cast. I really like his design. A lot of people think that he was the scariest animatronic from the first game, but honestly I think Chica was the scariest. I don't know, Bonnie, there's just something about him that is just cute and like creepy, but in like an ugly way as opposed to like a scary way. So I really like Bonnie. I like his variations too. Glam Rock Bonnie is really fun. Toy Bonnie is really, I think Toy Bonnie is probably my favorite variation of Bonnie. Yeah, I'm gonna put Bonnie in the A tier because I really like him. Next up is Bugs Bunny of Warner Brothers fame. I mean, what is there to say about this guy? He's an icon of cartoons, and his characterization changes from series to series. For instance, in the Looney Tunes show, he's actually more of like the straight man to Daffy's like crazy insane man. But I really like Bugs. He has endured the test of time as a really good kind of screwball character, and he's clever, he's a drag queen, what's not to love? So I'm going to put Bugs in the A tier. Next up is Bunny Rabbit from the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. In this screenshot, it's her appearance in the Sad AM cartoon, but she's been and some other stuff as well. I really like Bunny. Bunny's just a good old southern gal who's a cyborg, and she's just a really fun character in that show. I love her. I'm gonna put her in A tier. She's great. Next up is Bunzo Bunny from the Poppy Playtime games. Now, he's kind of a little bit of a dark horse character in this race because I guess the Poppy Playtime games are super popular, but he's a very minor character even within those games. But I just love his design. I love his voice actor. That comic that the Poppy Playtime Twitter did for Easter, oh my god, just so creepy. And yeah, I think he's a fun antagonist just dangling up on the ceiling above your head as you're trying to play a memory game. I like both his like actual toy design and then his kind of scarier monster design. I feel like with some of the monsters in that game and just mascot horror games in general, they can be a little bit too far removed from like what would conceivably be a children's toy, and I think that his monster form balances that out really well. He's definitely scarier than his like normal form, but he's still believable as a creepy but workable toy. So I'm gonna again put him in the A tier because I really like him and I think he's cute. Next up is Cream the Rabbit from Sonic. I'm sorry to all the Cream stands out there, but she just annoys me. And I'm not even coming from watching the English dub of Sonic X. Even in the Japanese dub, she's just not my favorite. I don't really like little kid characters, especially when they're like much younger than the rest of the cast. If all the cast is little kids, that's one thing. But when they're like the annoying younger child that is always having to be saved, that's never a character archetype that I've been really fond of. So sorry, Cream, you're in the D tier. Next is Cuddles from Happy Tree Friends. Oh my god, I was such a a huge fan of Happy Tree Friends when I was in middle school. I was that kid that was like watching it and being like, oh my god, I'm so mature. This is so like edgy and beyond what everyone else is watching. When in reality, it's just, I mean, I still like Happy Tree Friends today, and I like Cuddles. He's cute, but he wasn't my favorite character. I think my favorite character was Flippy, because of course it was. So I'm gonna put Cuddles in C tier just because, yeah, you know, I like him, but he's not really a character. He's more just a thing to get brutally murdered in a Flash cartoon from the mid 2000s. So sorry, Cuddles, you're getting C tier. All right, next up is Haru from Beastars. Now, I really like Haru's character arc throughout Beastars. I think it's a really interesting perspective to kind of analyze how sexuality functions for her in a society where she's constantly being belittled because of her size and just being a bunny as opposed to like a scary predator. So I like that aspect of her character. She's kind of a little bit bland. I don't know. She doesn't stick out a lot compared to some of the other characters in that show, especially since that show is so bonkers. She really is just kind of one of the more down-to-earth characters, and so she doesn't exactly stand out, but I do like her, and I like her design. I think she's super cute. I think she's a little bit cuter in the manga than she is in the anime. In the anime, she's a little bit more just, like, generic looking. But I'm going to put Haru at B tier, because I think she's a good character. I think her character has interesting things to say and analyze about sexuality. Yeah, overall, I'd say solid, but not my favorite. Next is Jax from The Amazing Digital Circus. I'm sorry. I'm one of those people. I just can't. I just love him. I love his design. I love his mannerisms. He's an asshole. You love him and you also love to hate him. I get why people think he's annoying or just outright mean. He is. I'm not going to apologize for that. But he's just the kind of villain or like antagonistic character that I really like in series like The Amazing Digital Circus. So he was definitely my favorite from the pilot, and I can't wait for that series to produce more episodes because I thought the pilot was really stellar, and I'm just looking forward to the whole series. Next up is Judy Hopps from Zootopia, the rabbit cop of everyone's hearts. I don't know where I was going with that sentence. I like Judy. I really like Zootopia. I think it gets a little bit of a bad rap for people taking it too literally as an allegory for race, when I think it's an allegory for prejudice more broadly. But I can see some of the criticism of the film, and particularly of Judy's character as a police officer. So I'm gonna put Judy in B tier. I think she's a fun character, but she does some shady stuff that is just a little bit like, it just doesn't really put a great taste in my mouth. Next up is Kuromi by Sanrio. She's technically a rabbit, so I've included her here along with my Melody, although her species is a little bit more ambiguous. Kuromi is S tier, obviously. Like, what is there to say about her? She's a goth icon. She's just the best, and I love her. And yeah, she's definitely one of my favorite Sanrio characters. Next up is Lola Bunny. Now, Lola is the only character in this tier list who has multiple versions, but I have actually separated her into multiple versions, and that is just because the version of her in the Looney Tunes show and the version of her in Space Jam are such different characters, it didn't feel right having them both be Lola Bunny, so I've separated the two of them. Lola Bunny from the Looney Tunes show, S tier, absolutely. She's so funny. This show is just so good overall, and her character in it is just one of my favorite aspects of that show. So yeah, absolutely S tier for Ms. Lola Bunny of the Looney Tunes show fame. Now, on to Space Jam Lola Bunny, and I'm including Space Jam 2 in this characterization. I like Lola in both of these movies. She's a little bit dull. She's kind of just there to be, in the first movie, the fan service, in the second movie, the kind of awkwardly shoehorned feminist character, and I guess not really feminist, more like girl power, a la the Spice Girls, because we're in the 90s still, apparently. I do like Lola, though. I think she adds kind of a fun dynamic to the first movie, especially since she's like the only one of them who's like an actual basketball player. And yeah, so I think she's fun. I think she's cool. She's a cool girl. So I'm going to put her in B tier. Next is the March Hare from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I mean, he's a character in that book. I'll give him that much. I do think he's funny in the Disney animated film. But yeah, he's just kind of a minor character, but he's like one of the only iconic hares I could think of, so I'm like, I have to put him in here somewhere. So I'm gonna put the March Hare at C tier. Next is Max from the Sam and Max franchise. I freaking love this little guy. Oh my gosh, he's my favorite rabbity thing. lagomorph, whatever he is. He's just kind of similar to Jax. He's just like the off the chain, balls to the wall kind of energy that I like. He's just cute. He's got such a like iconic little design with those bead eyes and giant mouth and that weird little belly button. I just love his empty head. I love him in all the games and the comics and in the cartoon. He's always had funny voice actors for the video games and cartoon adaptation of the comics. So yeah, definitely Max is an S tier character. Next is Monami, or Usami. I have her in her Monami form down here from the Danganronpa series. Sorry. Sorry, Monami. I don't dislike her. Well, I don't know. Does she deserve D tier? She's kind of annoying. I feel like she's a little bit more annoying in the English dub than she is in the original Japanese dub. But I don't know, just the cutesy language gets to me, kind of in the same vein as with Cream here. So I guess I'll keep her in D tier. She's not a bad character. I just don't particularly like her. So she gets to be D tier buddies with Cream. Next is My Melody from Sanrio. I don't want to be a hater, and I know all the lesbians love Kuromi and My Melody as like the goth and pastel lesbian couple of their dreams, but My Melody, she's just kind of boring to me. I don't particularly care for her design. The way her hat sits on her head has always kind of looked weird to me, so sorry to be a hater, but I'm gonna put My Melody in C tier. She's cute, and I like some of the merch she has. And of course, I love her rivalry with my queen Kuromi, but generally speaking, she's just not one of my favorite Sanrio characters, even though she is a bunny. Next is the Nesquik bunny. He gets an automatic D tier just because he's affiliated with Nestle. So yeah, sorry, bud. I do like his design, and I do sometimes imbibe in some Nesquik chocolate milk, but no more to say on that one. Next is Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, the OG Disney character that most people, unless they're die-hard animation fans, seem to forget about, including Disney themselves. Oswald has kind of an interesting history in terms of just the cartoons he's been in and also the Epic Mickey games. Does anybody remember those games? I should make a video about them because those games are wild. I wish I still had my brother's Wii so I could play them again. But I like Oswald. I like his design. I really like the ink blot furries of the 20s and early 30s in animation. I think they're fun. So I'm gonna put Oswald in A tier just because he's a cool little dude and an important part of animation history. Next up is Rabbit from Winnie the Pooh. I remember as a kid, Rabbit was always one of my favorite characters just because he's such a sourpuss. I love Eeyore. Eeyore is my all-time Winnie the Pooh favorite character, but there's something about Rabbit too, just constantly complaining about everything that I could relate to as a small child. So I'm gonna give Rabbit A tier just because he's me. It hits a little too close to home though, not gonna lie. Next up is Richard Watterson from The Amazing World of Gumball. What is there to say about Richard? He's a fun, goofy guy. He kind of plays a little bit too much into the bumbling dad archetype of sitcoms that I'm not particularly a fan of, but he's also really sweet and he has more depth to him than the stereotypical bumbling dad, so I'm gonna put him in B tier along with his daughter because I think he's a pretty good character overall, and he's just, I mean, look at him, look at those cheeks. Next up is Roger Rabbit from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, as well as Who Censored Roger Rabbit, the book the movie's based on in which he gets murdered. I have not read that, and that sounds like a wild premise, so that is another thing I should probably put on my to-read list and make a video about. I mean, he's just a funny little guy. What's there not to love? That movie is just so fantastic, and his animation within that movie is fantastic. The way that they're able to make him move around and interact with the real life set is nothing short of just, I don't want to say a miracle because that diminishes like the work that the animators put into that movie, but just like when he's interacting with the sink and hiding from the weasels, just think about how they had to do that in order to get the sink to turn on. Just all of the stuff, all the like puppetry and mechanics that they had to do in special effects in order to make him realistically interact with the world. I just love that movie. It's a good movie, not just because of its technical aspects, but also because it's a film noir, and I made a video about it being a neo-noir and what that kind of means. So yeah, check out that video to see more about my opinions on Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and yeah, Roger's a great character. Next up is Rutabaga Rabidowitz from BoJack Horseman. Rutabaga is also kind of a background character. He's more prominent in the early seasons when Princess Carolyn is not working at her own agency, but she's still an employee of Vigor. I just love him. He's just such a catty, metrosexual, like, LA type person, and I really think that his actor embodied that stereotypical person well. I also really like how he has mannerisms and tics, like he's often shown smoothing his hair and ears back. I just think that the attention to detail with that kind of stuff for his character made me really like him, and I'm gonna put him in B tier because he's a character I really enjoy, but he's also not a very big part of BoJack Horseman overall, so he doesn't make that much of an impact. Next up is Springtrap from Five Nights at Freddy's and all of his variations, including Burn Trap, Scrab Trap, Glitch Trap, basically any rabbit-like creature that is pretty much confirmed to be William Afton. I think Glitch Trap and Burn Trap are not technically Afton, but you know, whatever. Similar to Bonnie, he's definitely been one of my favorite characters in the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, especially in the original Five Nights at Freddy's 3 game where he appears. He's just so creepy and unnerving, but again, in a believable way. I feel like the subsequent designs of Scrap Trap and Burn Trap are a little bit like, okay, we get it. He's like a corpse inside of a fursuit. It's not that scary. But the original design, just the way he stares at you and peers at you from around the corner of your security office and just also just freaking walks in. I don't know. I like him. He's one of my favorites. Even though the Five Nights at Freddy's 3 game is not the most memorable of the franchise, I think Springtrap is one of the most memorable characters in the franchise, so I'm going to put him at B tier. Alright, next we have the Trix Rabbit. I remember seeing Trix commercials all the time as a kid, and I don't think I've ever had Trix cereal in my entire life. I've had a bunch of other cereals, but never Trix. I guess I don't really like fruity cereal, so no shade to this man, but I've never had his cereal. I think he's kind of mid. I'm going to put him as C tier just because he's an iconic character from my childhood, but also, yeah, it just doesn't really trigger much in me emotionally. Alright, next up is Vanilla the Rabbit from Sonic the Hedgehog, Cream's mom. Unlike Cream, I do like Vanilla. I think that her character design is sweet. I love that she's a motherly figure in the series that doesn't really have many parental figures going on. Sad AM has Uncle Chuck, but that's kind of all I can really think of off the top of my head, so she kind of provides a nice parental guidance to these wild teenagers that make up the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. But she kind of doesn't do a whole lot, so I'm going to put her at C tier just because she's better than Cream, but she's not really that impactful. Next is the White Rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. Kind of similar to the March Hare. I feel like I just kind of had to include him in here because he is an iconic literary rabbit, but he doesn't really make much of an impact on me just thinking about him. Honestly, I probably like the March Hare more just because the March Hare is like goofy and silly, whereas the White Rabbit is just this weird, serious character. I'm gonna put him at C tier as well though, just because I don't feel like he deserves worse than that. Next is Yuichi Usagi from Samurai Rabbit, The Usagi Chronicles, which is a adaptation slash spin-off slash, I don't know what to call it, of the Usagi Yojimbo comics, which you can see Miyamoto Usagi there in the bar down there, so I'll get to him in a second. Samurai Rabbit was a bit disappointing overall. I plan on making a video about it. I haven't finished the second season, but it kind of just felt like, I don't know. I liked a lot of aspects of it, like the really good attention to detail with Japanese culture, although when they biff it in certain areas, like with Yuichi's name, for example, it really stuck out to me. And I also just think his face, I don't know, the design is just a little bit uncanny valley. He's kind of got a lip situation that I do not like, especially since he's a lagomorph. It's like, why does he have lips? When they did Miyamoto Usagi in the 2012 TMNT series, he looked really good, so it's not like they can't do Usagi or Usagi-like designs in 3D animation. I like the voice acting, and I like his character. I like what he as a character has to learn over the course of the series. I think that was a strong story arc, but he doesn't really develop very much over the course of the series. Again, I haven't finished the second season, so maybe he gets better then, but it kind of just seems like he learns his lessons and then the next episode he doesn't really learn it. So I'm going to put him in C tier, mostly because of the quality of the show overall rather than his individual character. I like other aspects of his design though, it's just his face kind of bothers me. Next is Buster Baxter from the Arthur series. Buster is a cute character. I remember watching Arthur a lot growing up. I basically exclusively watched PBS and Boomerang as a child, so it was a lot of Arthur. It's a lot of Caillou, and it was a lot of Hanna-Barbera cartoons. I like Buster. I think he's a good best friend character for Arthur, and I like his design a lot. I think he's super cute. He's definitely one of my favorites of the kids in Arthur. And he's one of the most faithful to like what his actual species is supposed to look like, so he gets bonus points for that. So I'm going to put Buster in B tier just because he's fun. I like him, but nothing particularly special. Next is the Duracell Bunny. Now, if you were like me, you did not know that this creature existed until very recently. So, the Energizer Bunny, which you can see down here, was actually created to be a parody of the Duracell Bunny. The Duracell Bunny had been Duracell's mascot for a while. The Duracell Bunny was basically like a mechanical bunny that was used in commercials to show how long the Duracell batteries lasted, and then Energizer kind of spoofed it with their own sassier, funnier looking pink bunny. But the pink bunny has remained a mascot for Duracell, although I don't think it's used a lot in America. I think it's used more in the UK, from what I understand. But I'm sorry, this guy is getting F tier. I mean, look at that face. That is a face only a mother could love. And those eyes are just staring into your soul. So, sorry, dude. I didn't even know you existed before I was looking into the Energizer Bunny for this video, and unfortunately had to come across you. Next up is King Cosma from Summer Wars. Now, this is not technically a character. He's a mascot of a character in the movie, because the movie is about, like, virtual reality video games. It's basically the Digimon movie, but with original characters. That said, King Cosma, S tier. Love his design, one of the most iconic kimono characters I can think of from Japanese animation. Love Hosoda Mamoru, love all his films. Summer Wars is one of my favorite anime films and one of my favorite animated films like of all time, so yeah, definitely S tier for King Kazuma. Next is Maud from BoJack Horseman. Okay, this is a super like minor character from BoJack Horseman, but I had to include her because she's asexual and she's a rabbit and she works for Cinnabunny, which is so cute and so funny. I'm gonna put Maud in B tier. She's not a very big character. She kind of just appears at the last minute of the show to be an asexual girlfriend for Todd, but like I said, I had to include her because she appeals to my interests. Next up is Miyamoto Usagi from the Usagi Yojimbo comics. I love Usagi. I will fully admit that I'm mostly familiar with Usagi from all of his crossovers with TMNT, including his crossover in the Shredder's Revenge game. Oh my god, he's so overpowered, but I love just spamming jumping attacks with him. He's often portrayed as like very stoic in the TMNT series, but in the comics he's a little bit more of a like comedic character, and I just love the staying power of an independent comic like Usagi Yojimbo, and I really respect Stan Sakai and just the work he's put in with this character over decades. And yeah, I would love to have a franchise or something like Usagi Yojimbo to my name at some point. So I love Usagi. I'm going to put him in A tier just because he's iconic. What else is there to say? Next up is Peter Rabbit, the ever so iconic Beatrix Potter character that has been the face of movies and cartoons and a lot of different books. I loved the Peter Rabbit books growing up as a kid. I love all of Beatrix Potter's work, but I just remember reading, or really realistically, my mom reading the Beatrix Potter books to me and always loving Peter because of his mischievous but ultimately heroic nature. So I'm going to put Peter at A tier just because, I mean, what's not to love about this little guy? James Corden maybe, but that's not his fault. Next is the Energizer Bunny. Now, unlike his ill-fated predecessor, I actually really like the Energizer Bunny. I think that his design is just so fun, and I think his origin is also pretty hilarious, how he was designed as a parody of a Duracell commercial, and then he ended up becoming more iconic than the Duracell Bunny that he was parodying, and is still used as Energizer's mascot today. So I'm going to put Mr. Energizer Bunny at S tier. I just love his little flip-flops and sunglasses. I mean, if you're going to have to, like, shill batteries, that's the mascot that you want to go with. And last but certainly not least is E. Aster Bunnymund from the Rise of the Guardians movie. I know all you Tumblr people are having flashbacks. Bunny was always my favorite character in that movie, not only because he was voiced by Hugh Jackman and was a rabbit, but just because he had the funniest lines in that movie, hands down. Also, why is the Easter Bunny Australian? Who knows? That part, even as a kid, didn't really make sense to me. And also, he's like a puka, which is a Celtic fairy, if I recall correctly, so again, don't know what that has to do with Easter, but his name is E. Aster Bunnymund, which is the funniest, like, Lou Cipher nonsense that I've seen in a long time. So, Mr. Bunnymund, he's gonna get A tier just because he was my middle school crush, and I will not apologize for that. Alright, so here is our tier list of all of the rabbit characters I am familiar with. Now, let's get going on to the ones that I don't know. This should be a lot of fun. All right, now we are on to all of the bunny and hare characters that I am not familiar with. It's actually a smaller list than the ones I was familiar with, which is kind of interesting. I guess I have seen more furry properties than I was aware of. First up is Ace from Lunatics Unleashed. This is a series that I actually kind of want to watch just because it seems absurd enough to be something that I would enjoy. Basically, it's the Looney Tunes characters, but in the future, a la Batman Beyond. So Ace would be the analog to Bugs Bunny. He's kind of like the leader of the group from what I understand. I don't know, he seems fine. Let's put him in C tier just to kind of start us off here. Next is Alice from Bloody Roar. So this is a video game, and from what I understand, all of the characters have both like beast forms and human forms. So this character, her beast form is this like albino rabbit. Immediate S tier. I love a good nurse themed character, like especially in a horror or like fighting game, like the nurses from Silent Hill. And I love albino rabbits, and I just think she looks cool. So yeah, Alice, S tier on vibes alone. I don't know what her actual character's like. She may suck, but I like her little bunny form. Next is Babs Bunny from Tiny Toons. And yes, this is an embarrassing admission that I have not seen Tiny Toons. I'm sorry, or Tiny Toon Adventures, but I kind of know her deal. She, I think, is very sassy. She seems similar to Slappy from Animaniacs. I think they might even have the same voice actor. I like her. I like the bows at the ends of the ears. I feel like I see a lot of characters, whether it's a rabbit or some other species where they have bows, they have them more close to the head. So I think at the end of the ears, it kind of reminds me of like pigtail braids. So I think that's a nice design detail. And yeah, she seems fun. I'd like to hang out with her. So I'm going to put her at A tier. Next is the Bellflower Bunnies. I know nothing about this show. Apparently it's a French cartoon from like the early 2000s. They look cute. I don't know anything else though. I don't know who these two characters in this little picture I found are. They're all rabbits. It's like a whole family. So rather than having each one be an individual character, I'm just grouping them all together. I'm going to put them at C tier just because they seem cute, but I don't really know much and I can't really make a decision. Next is Bianca from Spyro. Now this is her revamped model from the newer games. She had a little bit of a different look back at the 90s. I didn't even know there was a bunny character in the Spyro games. I know Spyro, I know the goat guy, I know there's like a fawn looking character girl, and that's it. And I don't really know anything about the Spyro games. I know you play as a dragon, and I know they're like little platformers, but I like this design. She looks like she's a wizard of some kind, so that's pretty fun. So I'm gonna put her in B tier. She seems cool. I love lop-eared rabbits. I love big floppy ears, so she gets a bonus points for being lop-eared. Next is Bokko from Wonder 3, which is a manga and I think later anime from Tezuka Osamu. She, if you watched my video where I drew my persona in a bunch of different art styles, she was basically the template that I drew my persona in for the Tezuka style character, the like retro kimono character. I think her design is well known, but I don't really know much about the comic itself that she's from. I think she's like an alien. She's super cute. I love her big, giant, fluffy tail. And of course, you gotta love those big Bambi eyes, so I'm gonna put her in A tier just because she seems fun and I really like her design. I'm curious about the comic. Next is Brer Rabbit. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Maybe it's Brer Rabbit from Disney's Song of the South. Very controversial movie based on the Uncle Remus stories. That's it. I think in terms of his design and characterization from what clips I have seen of Brer Rabbit, also just what I know about him from Splash Mountain, having gone to Disneyland a lot as a kid, I think he's a fun character. He's the kind of trickster character that's similar to Bugs Bunny, which that myth of like the kind of trickster rabbit predates Bugs Bunny. Warner Brothers did not come up with that. So I think he's fine. I think I'm gonna put him in D tier just because of the movie he is a part of, but he's alright. Alright, next up is his evil cousin, Brother Rabbit from Coonskin, which is a Ralph Bakshi film. Yeah, I have not seen Coonskin, so I will reserve judgment, but a white guy making blackface caricatures. I mean, he did this in Fritz the Cat too with some of the characters. I don't know, I get what he's trying to do, but I don't think that it really was executed in the best way. So yeah, Brother Rabbit, sorry dude, you get F tier, along with I think all of the characters. I think Brother Fox and Brother Bear are similarly designed from what I recall about that movie. I'd like to do kind of a deep dive into Bakshi's filmography, not just his furry movies, but also just like Cool World and all the other stuff he's made. But yeah, that means I'd have to watch this movie, so I don't know about that. Next up is Bucky O'Hare from Bucky O'Hare and the Toad Wars, one of our rare hairs in this list here. I don't know much about this series. I know that there was a cartoon made in the 90s that was kind of riding on the coattails of TMNT and all of the TMNT knockoffs like Surf Sharks and Biker Mice from Mars. But I think the comics are, if not older than a TMNT comics, at least older than a TMNT cartoon. I know he's a hare. I know there are toads and there's a war going on. I like his design overall, though. I think he's a cool kind of space, like, what's it called? Not phaser punk. God, what is that word? Not laser punk, but it's like some kind of old-timey, like Flash Gordon, basically. That style of sci-fi. So I'm about that life. I think that's fun. So I'm going to put Mr. Bucky at B tier. All right, now we have Buster Bunny from Tiny Toon Adventures. So kind of his name is Babs. I'm familiar-ish with the cartoon. I feel like what I've seen of him, he's just basically Bugs, but if Bugs were a child, and so he's a little bit more rambunctious. Sorry if I am slandering your boy. I know a lot of people really like this cartoon. I'm gonna put him at B tier. He seems fun. Not quite as sassy as Ms. Babs up there, but I like him. I like his little shirt. It's cute. All right, next up is Captain Carrot, who is from DC. I believe the comic was like Captain Carrot and his zoo crew. I don't really think DC has done anything with that property in recent years. They were kind of a parody of DC heroes or Marvel heroes, just kind of superheroes in general. So he's like the leader of a squadron of furry superheroes. I think he's fun. It doesn't really do much for me. He looks a lot like most cartoon rabbits of that time period, which are basically all just Bugs Bunny knockoffs. So I'm gonna put him in C tier just because he doesn't do much for me. Next up, we have EB, Easter Bunny from Hop. So I think I have seen Hop before. It rattles around the deep recesses of my mind purely because James Marsden is in it, and I have an unhealthy obsession with James Marsden, but I could not tell you one thing about this man. I think his design is kind of cute. From what I've heard, though, the movie is pretty forgettable. He plays the drums. That's some characterization, I guess. I don't know. I'm gonna put EB in D tier, especially because they try to make him have a cool nickname by abbreviating his name to EB for Easter Bunny. All right, next up is another DC superhero rabbit, Hoppy the Marvel Bunny, who, if you're confused, he's referencing Captain Marvel, i.e. Shazam, not Marvel Comics. So, a little bit confusing name there, but he is a DC character. He's like, kind of like how Spider-Ham is Peter Porker. I think, from what I understand, Hoppy is like an alternate universe version of Captain Marvel that is a rabbit. I could be full of shit though. I've never read these comics. They're from like the 40s, but they seem fun. I definitely like his design a lot more than Captain Carrot's. I feel like he's more of his own character as opposed to being a Bugs Bunny knockoff. And yeah, I think because he has the Shazam / Captain Marvel outfit, I just think that outfit is better designed than whatever the heck is going on with Captain Carrot. So I'm gonna put Mr. Hoppy at B tier because I think he's kind of fun. Next up is Jazz Jackrabbit from a platform game series, I believe. From what I understand, it's kind of like a Sonic the Hedgehog, not knockoff. What's a politer term than knockoff? You know, like kind of like Gex Gecko or Bubsy, everyone's favorite platform mascot. I do say I like Jazz's design. I like that he's a little bit scrappy, and again, I like that he's a hare. What is it with green hairs from like the 80s and 90s? Again, don't know much about him, going off vibes, but I'm gonna put him in B tier because I like his vibe, and I like 90s platformers, and he just seems like a fun dude to hang out with. Alright, next up is Lexi Bunny from Lunatics Unleashed, the same series as our boy Ace up there, and she is like the Lola Bunny analog, although I'm confused as if she is Lola's descendant, because I would think the implication would be that Bugs and Lola got together and had children, so wouldn't she and Ace be like cousins or something, or brother and sister? I don't know. I don't want to get into it. I like her design. I like her vibe. She seems fun. She's kind of giving me Babs vibes, but more of an action heroine instead of like a comedy heroine. I'm gonna put her in A tier. I'm gonna be bold. All right. Next up is Lily Scoot. I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. From Bomse. Again, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. It's Swedish. I don't speak Swedish. But yeah, it's a Swedish comic and cartoon, and his name means little hop, and I mean, just look at him. Look at those buck teeth. Look at that giant red bow tie. Look at that carrot in his hand. Look at those big fluffy ears. I don't know anything about this man, but I would die for him because he is just so cute. So he's going S tier. White rabbits, man. What can I say? Next up are Max and Ruby, which I know I just said that I love white rabbits, but I don't know about these two, man. They kind of give me weird vibes. Sorry to all you Max and Ruby stans out there, but they're not doing it for me. I'm vaguely aware of this show. I think it's like a preschool cartoon. Yeah, I don't know. They ain't doing it for me, so they're gonna go in D tier. Next is Miffy. Now, full disclosure, I mostly know of Miffy from all of the like super sardonic or cynical memes with her, which I don't believe are her official merchandise. I think she's a wholesome character, kind of like a Sanrio character, just like a little mascot for stationery and stuff. She seems fine. I like her. I like the memes with her a lot more than I think I like the actual character herself. I'm gonna put Miffy at B tier just because I like her design and I like just the vibe she gives off, and I especially like her sardonic meme version as well. Alright, next is Mr. Harriman from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Now, okay, I have seen some episodes of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends when I was a kid. So it's not like I've never seen the show, so don't come for me. But I don't really remember much about the characters, and I especially don't remember Mr. Harriman. I know he's like the butler of the house. He kind of like oversees everything. But yeah, I don't really remember much about him. That's why he's on this list and not the list of things I've actually seen or watched or read. I'm gonna put him in C tier. I kind of like his design. I think if I just remembered a little bit more about his character, I would be more into him, but just kind of looking at his picture, I'm like, yeah, he's alright. Next is Peppy Hare from the Star Fox games. First of all, I feel like it's a missed opportunity to have him be Peppy O'Hare or O'Hara, considering that Wolf and Fox have Irish names. Like, come on, it was right there, you guys. I digress. I think Peppy's design is kind of fun. I like that he's this chubby old man in contrast with the kind of more action-y Fox and Falco and Wolf. Yeah, I like his big buck teeth. I like his big muzzle. I feel like that design choice is not used for rabbits very much. I feel like he looks almost like a bloodhound or just like a big hound dog, which is contrasted with his big bunny ears or hare ears, I should say. Yeah, he's not my favorite, but I think he's an alright character. I'm gonna put him in C tier. Next is Rancid Rabbit from Cat Dog. I did not grow up watching Nickelodeon as a kid. I've like not seen any Nickelodeon cartoons except for Avatar: The Last Airbender. So I don't know much about Cat Dog. I don't know if this guy is a main character in the series or if he's just kind of a one-off character. I will say, I like his design. I like his big nose. I like his little suit. I like his angles, his lines. Nicktoons from the 90s and 2000s, I think they have a lot of great stylization and character design. And this man is no exception. So I'm going to put him in A tier just because I like his energy. I don't know if he's a hero or villain or like what his role in the show is whatsoever, but he looks fun. So next up is Ricochet Rabbit from the Hanna-Barbera cartoon canon. So just like with Boko, Ricochet here was the primary inspiration for my Hanna-Barbera version of my persona. I even kind of copied the pose he's in this particular picture of him. Even though I went on a spiel earlier about how I basically only watched Boomerang and PBS as a kid, I don't really remember Ricochet. I watched like every other Hanna-Barbera cartoon except that. I watched Crick Draw McGraw, I watched Scooby-Doo, I watched Yogi Bear, but never really Ricochet. I mean, yeah, he's alright. I'm gonna put him in C tier. Just he doesn't defend the eyeballs, but he's nothing spectacular to look at either, so I do like alliteration though, so he gets bonus points for having an alliterative name. Alright, next is Sheena from Omagadoki Zoo, which I believe was the first manga by the guy who made My Hero Academia. I don't know if it was first, but I know it came before My Hero Academia, so that's kind of interesting. I could definitely see the resemblance in the art style of this guy. From what I understand, Omagadoki Zoo is like about a magical zoo where like the animals are like people, but some of them turn into like furries like this guy. Some of them are just like beasts and others are like Kimono Mimi type characters. Yeah, I don't know much about this manga. I think it's also an anime, but I'm interested and I really like the design of this character. I like that big bite out of his ear. I like his big red eyes. I like that he's got a carrot and I love his design. I guess we're going full White Rabbit S tier. Because, I don't know, I'm finding out things about myself today. Okay, so next we have Tweak from Octonauts. Now, the only reason I know about this show is because I think John Oliver mentioned it on an episode of Last Week Tonight, like 5 years ago. And I'm like, oh, this looks cute. And then I never watched it because it's a preschool show. And I know some people are really into preschool shows. Bluey, I know, is really big right now. I've just never gotten into them. Maybe someday I'll watch Octonauts. It seems really cute. I really like all of the designs. Honestly, I think the little polar bear guy is probably my favorite, but this is a tier list of bunny characters. So we have Tweak, the bunny. I think he's cute. I'm going to put him in A tier just because I really like the designs of this show. They appealed to my kawaii sensibilities perfectly. Next is Zayats, I believe that's how that's pronounced, from Nu Pogodi, which is an old Soviet cartoon that I think is kind of like a modern day retelling of Russian folk tales featuring the wolf and the hare. So he's another hare. Honestly, he's kind of a twink, and I love that. I don't know much about the show. I know that the wolf and the hare get into some like Looney Tunes style shenanigans, but I like this design. I think it's reminiscent of Western cartoons, but also it kind of has its own spin on animation. I don't really know much about Soviet animation. It seems like an interesting history to dive into because I think it developed relatively independently of like American animation and also Japanese animation. It's kind of like its own third thing happening there during the Soviet Union. So I like this little guy. I think he's cool. I'm going to put him in A tier just because I'm intrigued. Let's put it that way. Next is Eleanor from Eleanor Wonders Why, which is a modern PBS show. I don't know if it's still airing, actually, now that they say that. I say modern because it's not something that I would have watched as a kid. Super cute right off the bat. Love her little haircut. Not a lot of these characters actually have hair. She's one of the only ones that does, but I think that it suits her design. She looks like a little preschooler. Yeah, she just looks full of life and ready to face the world and learn new things. So I'm going to put her at A tier because I think she's pretty cute. And finally, we have our best boy, Sasha from Animal Crossing. Now, I've never played Animal Crossing. I do know that there are like another billion rabbit or hare characters in Animal Crossing, but I didn't really want to include all of them because I don't know any of them. But oh man, Sasha, my boy. I love this little dude. I remember when he came out and just people were losing their minds, and for good reason. I mean, he's a jock. I actually don't know if he's a jock, but he looks like a jock. He's got a freaking Letterman jacket, big old eyes with little eyelashes, blonde bangs. I mean, he's just iconic. I think he's so cute. I love him. He's going in S tier for sure. All right, and that is my rabbit tier list, or I should say leopard tier list. We got some hairs in there as well, based purely on vibes. So some of you might have been screaming at me the whole time I was making this tier list. If you know these characters, I'm sorry. But I'm also not sorry because I think it's funny to kind of do stuff blindly like this. If there are any characters I missed in this video that you think I should add to this list, please make a comment down below and I'll try to check out the stuff that you recommend. I do want to watch/read most, if not all, of the things on this list that I have not yet seen, and I'm always down for recommendations, so leave some in the comments if I missed your favorite rabbit or hare or lagomorph. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!